This is one of my favorite things of all time, which is critiquing blog posts.
I think it's other people's favorite thing too.
Story arc happens here. He starts with reviewing websites with clients can quickly become chaotic. And then he does a very classic content marketing blogger type thing where he tells a hypothetical story. All of that is unnecessary.
Website feedback tools organize this chaos into a single source of truth. It's almost like getting too into the weeds too quickly. Because I'm like, a single source of truth, what is that single source of truth?
The 3 bullets he chooses for there are 3 key things I think could be better. Number 1, he says, they need to be easy for clients to use. Number 2, ability to collaborate. And number 3, deep integrations. My argument with all 3 of them that I expressed to him was they sound too generic, like any of these tools can say it. Welcome to the Grow and Convert Marketing Show. I hope this type of episode is going to be a recurring theme because, as you know, Benji, this is one of my favorite things of all time, which is critiquing blog posts.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think it's other people's favorite thing too.
I hope so. So, what we're going to do is we have a blog post written for a tool called FeedBucket. We will explain everything. If you are listening on the podcast, I think you'll be fine because we'll be critiquing sentences and reading them out loud. And the overall theme of this particular critique is, I think, identify and focus on your differentiator. And that will become clear towards the end. Marcus is in our course and community, which you can find on our website. Just look at course and community up in the nav bar. And he submitted this for review. And I gave him, so that's a normal thing. And we call it a course and community because it's built into this kind of community type software. And anyone inside can ask us for feedback. They do that all the time. They ask us for feedback on keyword strategy, various random questions, and a common one is to ask me for feedback on the writing, and it's fun. And I actually think not a lot of people do it or take advantage of that. And then I said, hey, this is actually really interesting. The post is really good, and it would be a great example. Can we break it down on our YouTube? And he said, yes, please. So here we go. So this is the blog post, 9 best website feedback tools. But in order for all of this discussion to make sense, we need to zoom out. And actually, as I was thinking about this video, Benji, I was thinking one thing I wanted to say is writing starts at search intent. And then I thought, I should probably write a short blog post that says this. It wouldn't really say anything brand new that I or we have not said before, but it'd be really convenient to have to even send to like new writers that are trying to train to write at Grow and Convert and other people. Writing starts at search intent. So let's do that.
As opposed to what, actually?
Oh, great question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just curious, like your level of thinking there. So writing starts at search intent versus what are people typically doing, or what are you seeing?
That'll become clear when I analyze the intro and we talk about the intro. But I think it's a really good question. I think it's that people assume that they need to start at the beginning of the story. It's something that we've talked about a ton.
Yeah.
I've talked about a ton.
I can see what you're saying. It's like writing towards the specific keyword versus looking at the SERP, trying to think through where someone is at in their journey of learning about this topic, and then starting your intro there versus when people start intros, they typically start all the way back at like, if you're the first time learning about this topic, this is what you need to know, versus if you look at the SERP, I'm just guessing by this tool because I haven't looked at this in depth, but people already have a pretty decent knowledge of
what a website feedback tool is.
Exactly. And so you don't need to start just like with design and talking about design principles and all these little things.
Yeah, your question actually stopped me in my tracks. It's a good one in the sense that, like, I don't know if I misinterpreted your intent of the question, but where my mind went was like almost like a, Davish, isn't it obvious that any writer would write for the reader in mind? Yes, you're right. But I think what I mean by this is if you think more carefully about search intent, like what you just said, often there's nuances that in hindsight when it's pointed out to you are very almost embarrassingly obvious that changes how you write, both in the beginning, in the introduction, and later. So, like, yes, of course, every writer is thinking about the reader, but I guess I would argue you're not thinking carefully enough about them.
No, I agree. I see that often. I think people would argue that they are writing for the reader, but usually they're writing for the keyword and the search intent, actually.
Yeah.
I think they're not thinking through what this person already knows and what I would need to explain to them to convince them that my product would be a good solution for them. Like the way I think you and I think about this is if we were explaining this topic to someone over coffee, how would you explain that to them? And just like, I think you have a sense of what they already know about the topic there. Whereas I think that kind of goes out the window when some people are writing to rank for keywords. Like they're looking at other people's writing or they're looking at other blog posts. And if someone else starts all the way back, they also feel the need to start all the way back at the very beginning of the story about this topic, instead of just thinking through, all right, generally, I know my customers have this need, I know they have these problems, and I should just start there versus like, what is a website feedback tool? You probably don't need to describe that if you're writing on this topic.
Yeah. It goes back to, it's like a different use of our term Google research paper. We use that term to refer to like having no subject matter expertise when you're Googling around to figure out what to say. But another way to use that is the way a lot of people, content writers, brands, in-house freelancers write these like marketing long form blog posts is they write it like we all used to write school papers when we were in school. That's what Benji means when he says start way back. We've been using that terminology inside Grow and Convert. So if you haven't heard it before and you're like, what are they talking about? We mean like when you would write a school paper like on Abraham Lincoln. Oh dear, we have a bunch of international people that listen and follow us. Abraham Lincoln was now the American audience will laugh at me.
I want to say like 16th president.
Yeah, I was going to say somewhere in the teens. Somewhere in the 16th.
If I get that right, by the way, I'll be very impressed.
I will also be impressed. I will buy you a burrito when we hang out if it's the 16th. I was going to say like 14th. He was some 10th president, very important to the U.S. because he was the president that abolished slavery and kept the country together when the South wanted to leave. So if you're writing a school paper on Abraham Lincoln, actually, side note, forget the audience. Half of our company at Grow and Convert is going to be like, who's Abraham Lincoln? I don't know all the presidents. I hope they're listening. You always start at the beginning in those school papers. Abraham Lincoln was born and this to these parents in this year, blah, blah, blah. When like really he's famous for things he did when he was like an adult and a president, right? And so it's like it's like an encyclopedic entry, and you don't want to do that here, and we'll explain why.
I know. I feel like with blog writing, you have to unlearn everything that you learned in school. Like, I feel like when you did a paper for English in school, you were taught to write like this. It was supposed to be like 5 paragraphs, I think, in intro to end. And you were told to do this. And it's almost unlearning everything that you've done in writing, because you need to start to hook someone. You need to start with what is the problem that this person has, and then quickly go to, you have this problem and here's the solution, and that's what we're going to explain in this blog post. So it's like the whole intro is just meant to grab the person's attention and get them to keep reading, versus in school, you were trying to explain a topic and go, start at the beginning, and then there was some conclusion that they're supposed to learn by the end of the paper. It's just
that's
completely
really
different.
Interesting. You're right. I never thought about that. What you saying that made me think it's almost like nonfiction writing was taught to us in school, like the story arc of like Disney movies. You ever think like this? Now you're going to be the one that doesn't understand this, just like our British team members don't know who Abraham Lincoln is. The best part is I know that Matt's going to be like, not only do I know who Abraham Lincoln is,
he probably knows more than you do.
Right. He probably knows more about U.S. history than I do. So, but like I was gonna say, Disney's Frozen. Like the key thing is like one of the princesses has this ice power she can't control. But all these Disney movies will start when they're like babies. It'll like open with some shot. So it's like that's like a fiction's arc. And that you kind of see that. In fact, let me jump ahead a little bit. Marcus kind of starts like that, like website feedback tools. I'm gonna start at the beginning and explain to you guys what that is. I'll go to FeedBucket's homepage. I'll explain what that is. But that story arc happens here. He starts with reviewing websites with clients can quickly become chaotic, and then he does a very classic content marketing blogger type thing where he tells a hypothetical story. You put their new site on a staging domain and send over the link. What comes back is a flood of emails, Excel sheets, and PowerPoints filled with unclear feedback that your developers and designers struggle to understand. Before you know it, you're trapped in an endless email ping pong match with 40 messages. So there's like this story. What I'm going to get to is I think all of that is unnecessary. I told him that, and we will kind of come up with on the fly some better intros. In fact, it's like kind of buried into his intro. Okay, let's get to it. What is a website feedback tool? You can kind of tell from that story that I just read from, that's literally I read out of the beginning of this post. It's tools that like web design agencies use to get feedback on websites they create. I guess in-house people could use them as well. So if we go to FeedBucket's homepage, you see like a little, I don't know, screenshot thing on the right side. It's a tool that like a lot of them you can like install a little browser extension, which actually is going to come up later. FeedBucket doesn't do it. He does it through a JavaScript snippet. And that's actually a big differentiator for them that I'm going to argue they don't lean into enough. But, you know, some of them will be like a WordPress plugin or a little browser extension. And the client or whoever is like receiving the website can literally like point, draw, like click on parts of the website and be like, hey, change this font and we don't like this thing and blah, blah, blah. Like there's this whole class of tools like this called website feedback tools. So this keyword is what we at Growing Convert terminology would call like one of your main, actually I would say it's literally their main category keyword, meaning it's literally the name of the product category. There are not probably higher, there may be higher converting keywords because comparison keywords are higher, but like it's just like a really important keyword for them. So the next thing in search intent is let's actually Google this. So I'm going to stay on this tab and I'm Googling website feedback tools. So the first one is from one of his competitors, Marker, which actually he lists in his post. 24 best website feedback tools for 2025. The next one is the homepage of another competitor, Ruddle, best design feedback. Then it's Reddit, which is very common in Google these days, where there's like multiple Reddit posts be like, hey, what are your feedback? Any recommendations for website feedback tools? What the heck? And then SurveyMonkey is below Reddit in position 4. SurveyMonkey's homepage?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's weird. Anyway, you can tell BugHerd is a competitor. It's their homepage. There's a Hotjar blog post that's just website feedback tools from Hotjar. So like people are looking for tools. And the other thing I want to think about is beyond analyzing the SERP. So what we would normally do in our process is we would open each of those up. So like, for example, let me click into Marker and I would kind of be like, okay, this is a blog post. The first, actually, this is interesting. The first sentence of the Marker post is website feedback tools help you collect feedback directly from your site, from clients, usability testing, blah, 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 blah. And then 3 sentences in, there is just a table of a bunch of tools, like tool name, what it's best for, and the G2 rating. I mean, look at this. This looks like 20 tools. So they just like get right into just like listing the tools. And that's actually kind of really interesting. A key thing beyond analyzing the SERP, just also use your logic of what you know about your target customer about, this keyword. Just like sit down and think about it. So specifically, if you are FeedBucket, Marcus's company, who is your likely target audience? We have not talked to Marcus about this, but we can just kind of like think about it, right? So in fact, right below the hero unit on their homepage, there's a little section that says our customers. And the headline says, trusted by agencies building websites for clients worldwide. So they don't list multiple customers. They literally just say trusted by agencies. So it is a web design agency that have, clients worldwide or whatever. What I'm trying to get at is if you are someone who is going to buy FeedBucket and pay for it. And they're literally saying it's agencies. You're not a beginner.
Yeah, I was gonna say the complete opposite. You're probably advanced. Like an agency is doing this work for clients all the time. That's probably one of their main service offering. So it'd be like coming to us and say like an agency that does content marketing and then describing what content promotion is or something like that. Like these people are very skilled in what they do because
Or
they
like
deal with
SEO
this all the time.
tools, like talking to
Yeah,
us about like Ahrefs versus SEMrush or something like
and
that.
saying like ranking for keywords is important and you're speaking to an SEO agency. It's like, yeah, of course.
Right. So in that context, what I told him my first bit of feedback was, I don't think this whole story about, you sit down, you put their site on the staging domain, a bunch of random feedback comes in through Excel, through PowerPoints, like there's 40 message flying on. Like, let me just talk about this for a second, because I have received some pushback on, I think, LinkedIn comments or something when I've said
I
things
was
like
going to
this.
say that this could be perceived as, well, aren't you talking about the pain points? So
Yeah.
you're saying a flood of emails, Excel spreadsheets, and PowerPoints, and you're like, yeah, these are touching on points that our clients deal with.
Yeah, I was going to go the same place. So that would be the comeback. Is like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about? We're resonating with pain points. Didn't you guys invent pain point SEO? You hypocrites. Yes, it technically is. But this is what all this lead up was talking about, is just the best way to think about it for me is to think about it in the context of the SERP. We talked about it like this person is saw the Google's first page SERP before they got to your site. So they have at their disposal. The SERP is like a dating app. There's just they could endlessly swipe past you, and there's just an infinite number of other people they can choose. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's like you need to stand out and capture them. And yes, technically these are pain points, but I would say you're putting the story in the intro. It's belaboring the pain point. If somebody is Googling tennis rackets, you just sell them a racket. You don't need to tell them how tennis is fun and you get exercise playing tennis and all this stuff. And so it's like you have to be a little bit like reading the room. And I think this is too much. You could later in the post resonate with pain points in that way and say, using FeedBucket, you avoid these common scenarios. I actually think there's like a nuanced writing thing. Even if I wouldn't do this, but if you decided to, you know what, screw it, Davish, I'm just going to start the blog post out with pain points because I think you're wrong and I think that's better. Fine. I think just the way it's written could be a little bit more not kind of speaking to the reader as though they don't know this. You could just
Yeah.
say,
Just to the point, I feel like.
yeah, extremely common like issues with getting website feedback for web design and development agencies that we've heard are as follows, and then just bullet point them out. And that would be fine, but I think something about the story thing, it's like, it's almost like the content writers feel like they're writing, like I said, like a fiction story, or even like, like some Time magazine feature piece, or like the New Yorker or something, where people are like sitting down over a cup of coffee and they're reading your words and you want to have a voice. It's like, I'm sorry to say, like, that's not what this is. And no one wants to do that. They just want to get to some tools. Like, if you ever Googled for some tools, you're like kind of doing work. You're like in the middle of a work day. You just want to like figure out what tool is right for your company and then move on.
Yeah, it's like when you Google a recipe and
Oh
there's
my
like
God.
three
The worst.
pages worth of like storytelling before you get to the actual recipe, and you're
Yeah.
like, just give me the recipe.
I'm telling you, recipes will be the reason why, like, it just, you can't feel bad for Google if ChatGPT completely eats their lunch. It's like, literally, I have not talked to a single person who's like, yeah, I love reading the story in front of the recipe. And yet they do, those recipe bloggers have to write that because that's what Google ranks. It's so annoying. Okay. So we've belabored that. Now, the third paragraph after kind of the story stuff I read earlier, which you can rewind and listen to, goes like this. So after he says 40 messages flying back and forth, important changes get lost in the chaos and the review process drags on. Now, the next sentence is interesting. Website feedback tools organize this chaos into a single source of truth, ideally in the project management tool your team already uses. And then he says, I used to run a web agency where we built hundreds of websites for clients and tested most feedback tools in the market. From this experience, I learned there are 3 things you need to pay attention to when choosing a tool. There are elements here that start to get interesting. So if you were the one Googling it and you're looking for a website feedback tool, it's obvious you Googled website feedback tool or best website feedback tool. There is some stuff here that's a little bit more interesting. Oh, this is someone that was like me. He used to run a website agency. He's built hundreds. He's tested most of them. That's kind of interesting. And then there's this little tidbit that's going to come up later. Ideally in the project management tool your team already uses. This is mentioned so softly, and to foreshadow, this is what I think Marcus should lean into extremely heavily because it's a huge differentiator of FeedBucket from what I can tell.
Yeah. Also, I just feel like the way that was written could be a lot clearer. So when it started at that first sentence, and this is my first time seeing this article too, and this is what stood out to me was just website feedback tools organize this chaos into the single source of truth. It's almost like getting too into the weeds too quickly. Because I'm like, a single source of truth, like what is that single source of truth? Like I'm not aware that the single source of truth should be the project management tool. Like I almost feel like he should have started with the sentence before. I used to run this, and here were like, if you're going to start with the story, start with the story and say, I used to run this web agency, and here were some of the problems that I ran into. And that single source of truth would have been one of the issues. I was working out of a bunch of different tools, and this is the better way to do it. But it's a little confusing having that before and then going into the story for me personally.
I think what you're getting at is this. Yeah, it's an interesting little. It's like an important writing detail. It's the issue with the phrase "single source of truth."
Yes.
There's like a term for these phrases, but it's like this little like kind of play on words that if you just didn't say that, but you said what's behind that term, single source of truth, in this case more explicitly, it would be clearer. Website feedback tools allow users to give feedback on websites under development in one place instead of disparate emails and Slack messages or something like that.
Or one of the issues that I faced when running a website agency was when client or customers gave feedback. The feedback was in multiple tools instead of having a single place where you could view all of it. Something like that, where it's just very clear what the problem is, because I know what a single source of truth is. But in this case, when I was reading that, I was trying to figure out, okay, where does all this data live? What is the issue here?
Yeah. Okay, so we've concluded that there are some elements of good stuff. So the credibility of I used to run a web agency, I've tested most of these tools is really interesting. And I think this is the real pain point. Or there's multiple pain points. It's not like there's only one pain point for someone Googling something. But I think this is one of the more real-time pain points of the Googler. Underneath the phrase, and I tested most feedback tools in the market along the way. We've concluded their customer is a web development agency person, so they're not a beginner. They do this for a living. We've concluded that telling them what, this elaborate story of website feedback tools is too beginnerish for them. Then so they know their pain point. Yes, you can touch on it like we said. But their current pain point at the moment of Googling is there are a bunch of these tools. Which one's the best one? And so immediately an alternative way to intro this that I think would be very kind of growing converty, the way we would write this is, yes, maybe we define it. Website feedback tools are this. And either right after that or even without doing that, you say, there are a bunch of different website feedback tools in the market. And then you need to you can take this in a few different ways. But you would say, we wrote this guide to help you choose. We also sometimes write it in this way. We've built one of them and have been doing this for a long time and used to run a web agency before. Here are the features you should be looking for to find the best one. Here's what distinguishes the best one. That's touching on a slightly different pain point, the pain point of choosing the right software, not the pain point that the software solves. You will get to that, especially when you have the long section explaining your own software. You will get to that. But their immediate pain point is there's a bunch of these tools that say they do the same thing, which is, what did they say? organizes this chaos into a single source of truth. On the left, there's a bunch of these tools that he mentions in the piece. FeedBucket, of course, says that. BugHerd will say that. Marker will make that claim. Markup.io, they'll all say the same thing. So it's like, well, how do you differentiate? And then he gets into that. He says, from this experience, there are 3 key things you need to pay attention to when choosing a tool. This is very grown converty, and I think it's a great thing because of what I just said. Like, that's the real immediate pain point, is like, how am I supposed to evaluate and decide which one's right for me? But the 3 bullets he chooses for there are 3 key things, I think could be better. Number 1, he says, they need to be easy for clients to use. Number 2, ability to collaborate. And number 3, deep integrations. My argument with all 3 of them that I expressed to him was that they sound too generic. Like, any of these tools can say it, especially the very first one being phrased as needs to be easy to use. I think in my video to him, I said, every software ever made makes the claim that they are easy to use. So if that's what's bolded in the bullet like it is now, it's not right. But inside this bullet is, in my opinion, the nugget of differentiation that that he and FeedBucket should be leaning into hard. So let me just read this explicitly. Needs to be easy for clients to use is kind of the title of this bullet. Then it says, all of us who work with clients know this with certainty. I think is a absolute throwaway sentence. You don't need to say this again. Then, if you ask clients to install extensions or learn complex tools, they'll just default back to sending emails. That's, to me, the differentiator. And if I scroll down to the FeedBucket section, he puts a screenshot of his homepage, which is actually slightly different than his current homepage screenshot. So I like this old one. The homepage hero unit, like the title of his website on the homepage at this time in the screenshot was collect and manage website feedback in your existing tools. It's kind of interesting. I had a side project a long time ago with someone who made a tool kind of in this space. So I kind of know it. And because of GrowthRock, the CRO agency, I've sort of kind of glancingly touched on some of these tools before. This is really interesting. Most of these tools, you're not working in your existing project management tool set. You're working in that tool. You like the client like marks. That's why some of them are called marker.io, markup.io, because they literally like mark up the website. And then you got to go and log into your marker account and like see their feedback and see their markups and the screenshots or whatever. And long story short, FeedBucket like feeds that stuff into your Trello, Asana, Jira, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of interesting. And he has a really compelling reason that he says later, and it's in that sentence, in that first bullet, which is a lot of clients don't want to install a browser extension just to give you feedback on the website you're building for them. They by default work in their project management software, and FeedBucket does it in there. So if we now go back to what we said at the beginning, their audience or their target customer is this advanced person. That advanced person probably knows about these other tools. BugHerd is like a well-known brand in this space. Same with Marker.io. I think Marker is like VC funded, and like, it's VC funded companies. They always come in with a huge splash of marketing, so everyone hears about them. Like, if you say, look, there's a bunch of website feedback tools. In fact, I think I would be okay with skipping the definition of a website feedback tool and just assuming they know. They Googled it. Who else is using this? Not someone building a website one time. And so if you just said, there are tons of website feedback tools in the market that all claim the same thing, which is to consolidate feedback and neatly in one place. But there's a big flaw with a lot of them, which is they ask clients to do too much work, like install extensions, learn their tool, and work in their system, which clients, in my experience, having run a web development agency, don't do. And when they don't do it, you're back to sending emails. And so to solve this problem, we built the first, or one of the first, or whatever, however you want to phrase it accurately, website feedback tools that when the client gives feedback, it pushes everything to their native project management tool. So then the discussion continues where the client is going to be discussing and it's organized there. That is eyebrow raising if you know this space. You'd be like, what? So these 3, and then ability to collaborate, I told him the same thing. I was like, they're all website feedback tools.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the
Right.
product, is you're supposed to collaborate.
Yeah, they would all say this. And then integration with project management tools is kind of interesting, like deep integrations. I would lean into this, like I said. So If I was him, I would sit down and be like, okay, what are my big differentiators? You don't need three. Everyone loves three. You can have one. We have published many things for clients where we're like, this is the number one issue. Okay. So similarly, in his FeedBucket section, this other kind of issue I see often in blog posts, these kind of bottom of funnel content posts, which is repetition. So he says FeedBucket, and it's first on our list is our own creation, FeedBucket, fine. The tool was born from my firsthand frustrations managing websites. Great. While running a web agency, I know exactly how messy these reviews can get. It's starting to get a little bit like too long and wordy, but like, it's great to mention that it came from your own work. It's exactly why we built FeedBucket specifically for agencies. Fine. Maybe we can, wordsmith and cut some words there and make it more punchy and just keep one sentence, but that's okay. And then it just repeats two key principles shape the creation of FeedBucket. It has to be dead simple for clients to use. Still makes that same mistake of...
Yeah, it's not saying anything new or interesting or different. Or even for me, it's like, okay, it's simple. So what? I mean, again, anyone can say that. I don't think that there's anything different about that.
And there's like that nugget there of that thing is still there. He says, after working with hundreds of clients, I learned this the hard way. If it's not super easy, they'll just send emails every single time. It's in there. But what I would want him to say is the two principles shaped it. Number one, we wanted a tool where the client can have the discussion in their native project management tool. And that's kind of in that second bullet. I think both of these, his second bullet title is most web agencies already use a project management tool. They should just be combined.
Yeah.
One key principle, like I built FeedBucket to solve this one massive problem because this didn't exist in existing website feedback tools. I mean, to some extent, that's kind of the grow and convert positioning or message in a lot of our posts. Like we had done content marketing or worked with agencies and we noticed this problem is that they focus on traffic and not conversions, and we wanted to solve that.
Yeah, I think when you tell it in the story coming from your own experience, it becomes relatable to anyone who's been in that same position. And so you can use that story, but I think you got to get clear on what the exact problem is. And from, this space more than I do, but I agree with you that the main problem seems to be if you use any of these other tools, it becomes difficult for the client.
Yeah. And then he gets into stuff that I really like. And I told him somehow find a way to get this concisely teased in the intro, like everything I've said in this video, which he says, like solving the first principle starts with how you install the tool. There's three common methods with pros and cons. Number one, a browser extension. Number two, a shareable link. Number three, a script tag installed on the website. Just to long story short or get to the ending, his uses the script. So then he first talks about the first two, like browser extensions work great for internal teams, but trust me on this, they have significant limitations for client reviews. You know what, Benji, now that you pointed out whatever sentence that was before, the
single source of
truth, that there's a pattern there in this writing. He's sort of delaying getting to the point a little bit at a sentence level. Like I almost want him to say this, browser extensions work great for internal teams, but, and then after the but, just say the key thing, which is, but getting clients to install extensions. Clients just don't install extensions. I've literally had multiple clients that just refuse to do it and they would just email the feedback. But instead there's these like filler words. Trust me on this. They have significant limitations. Just say the limitation.
Well, yeah, because if you're an agency who's dealt with this, you don't need to be told, trust me on this, because you've dealt with this yourself.
Yes.
That's
good point.
That's the thing. And when you're speaking to an advanced audience, if you're telling the story and you're saying, I am one of you, or I have been one of you before, and these are the problems that I've faced, likely these other people are facing the same exact issues. So just say the issue.
Yeah. It's the detail of the issue that's going to get them to trust you, not you saying, trust me.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, when people say trust me, it almost makes me trust them less. You're like, what are you hiding?
Trust us. Don't say trust me. So then the second one, he says, shareable links are another popular approach. It's straightforward. You do this, that, and the other. And on the surface, it seems like a great solution, but there are some real downsides. Your clients now, again, same thing. Your clients now need to keep track of two different links, both their staging site and the external feedback problem. Fine. So then there's my last thing, and we can kind of close with this because I think the rest of it, when he gets into the detail, it's good. I'll actually go over that because I think he does it better than a lot of writers, and I want to talk about the positive as well. But So he says, look, there are some small downsides with the shareable link approach. And then he gets to the third thing, which is the script, using a script to give feedback or install this. This is why we chose script installation for FeedBucket. Then watch this. No, wait, before I read further, and I hope your eyes didn't read further, what are you expecting to come after this? So after he's kind of, talked bad about browser extensions and the shareable link method, and he says, this is why we chose the script installation for feedback, what are you expecting to come after that sentence?
I don't know.
why it's good is what I would expect,
Okay.
right? If you're saying, look, there's 3 ways to install website feedback tools, browser extensions, here's why that sucks.
Yeah.
The whatever.
Like why it's easier, why it's the better option.
Right. But instead, he kind of starts off with a downside.
Yeah, I was that. So that's why I was getting hung up, because I did read to the next sentence, and I'm like, I was trying to think, why would you say it? Yeah, saying that you need to do this after you just said that this is better, it was kind of confusing, because then I was like, isn't this more difficult? Or now you're making it seem difficult?
Yeah, it's like you're just dinging yourself right before. In fact, just a funny thing popped in my mind. My dating app analogy, it would be like when you start to message a girl to be like, look, I know I'm not the best looking guy, but I have a great personality.
Yeah.
You'd be like, why do you ding yourself at the beginning? Yes, it means you need to add a script tag. It'd be like Louis Vuitton being like, look, this is really expensive. Like, we get it. But
you're gonna love the feeling of this bag after you get it.
Yeah, but your friends are all gonna talk about the bag. It's like, don't ding yourself. Yes, it means you need to add a script tag to your site. I mean, I guess if I was him, probably my comeback to this line would be like, but guys, like,
you want to be honest that there's
this is like a real issue. It's not a silly thing like someone buying a Louis Vuitton bag like obviously knows it's expensive, but like he might say like, no, like people literally resist writing a script. I would say I don't care. Like I still would convince them. Like it's probably true. He probably has had people be like, oh, I gotta ask the client to install a script, or we gotta install a script. Like that's annoying. But I would just. I don't think you're going to.
I think the difference is you can say the benefit is that they only need to do this one thing at the very beginning, and then they're done, and then they don't need to do anything else after that. It's like, yes, when we work with content clients, there's some setup works. Like we need to get some access to their analytics. We need to get tag managers, stuff like that. There's some setup that goes into the very beginning, but once you do that, the client's done, and they don't really need to continue to give us stuff or add anything to their website. And I think that's kind of what he's trying to get at here.
What I wanted to say was, even if that is real, like he's like, no, if he was here, he'd probably say like, no, the people have literally like said like, I don't want to add a script to my website, blah, blah, blah. I still think the way to sell them is not to be like, I know you don't like this. Just sell them on the benefit, and it comes later. So like, let me just read all of this so that the listeners can get it exactly right. So he says, this is why we chose the script installation of FeedBucket. Yes, it means you need to add a script tag to your site or use a WordPress plugin, but this is a small bit of setup that brings huge benefits. Again, by the way, this is not like the end of the world. I'm kind of nitpicking a little bit, but that's fine. And then he says, your clients only need to remember one URL, their staging site. No extensions, no accounts, no extra platforms to learn. That's compelling. And importantly, this is the only method that allows your clients to submit feedback on mobile devices. That's super compelling.
Yeah, so lead
I would just lead with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then people will deal with the other part. Like that. And then actually my Louis Vuitton analogy was meant as kind of a joke, but like it actually works. If you go to Louis Vuitton and purse page, which I will save everyone from doing, like just make it look cool. Like everybody knows it's expensive. And so just sell the benefit. Okay, so then the rest of it, he gets into sort of the details. And what I want to highlight here, and we can put his exact URL in the show notes so you can like read the post carefully yourself. And then you can watch the video and kind of think about how this applies to your own writing. But one thing is he spends a lot of time now going through FeedBucket features. I'm not going to go through the details of it, but that's a big thing we've noticed many people don't do, which is they feel like when they do these list posts for these category keywords like best X tools or whatever, that they need to create this fake sense of objectivity and allocate an equal amount of space on the screen to all of the tools. You don't need to. Like the kind of the argument there is like, well, but then it'll look biased. They see the FeedBucket logo on the top left. They know you're biased. Just put your best foot forward, right? Like it's almost like if I'm this person Googling, I want FeedBucket's best pitch. I'll decide. I'm not stupid. I know I have other options at my table.
Also, with all the AI search, if you don't do this and it's pulling in information from your post,
Great
all
point.
all of this nuanced information about your product and what's better about it is not going to make it into that list. And so, yeah, I think this is a better approach. Like Bugherd, Marker, all the other companies, if your piece is getting pulled from for information and theirs has minimal information and yours has all this robust information about your product, that's just going to benefit you if someone's looking at that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. We recorded a video on this, but I think the day we're recording, I think next week. So probably by the time you listen to this, we will have a piece on our site. It'll be in like the new post section, which is this correlation we found. And the video has been out for a while, so I can say this, of 70 to 80% in that range of terms in which we're ranking clients on Google on page one, the top 10 positions. When you type the same thing into ChatGPT or Perplexity, those AI tools mention our client's name as one of the options, one of the tools for these bottom of funnel queries. And it's just like this theme of like, and it opens this whole discussion, which we discuss in the post, of like what's behind this and why is this happening, and kind of to like cut to the chase there. They are basically, there's a huge part of this where they're Googling. ChatGPT uses Bing because Microsoft is a huge investor, and Perplexity has their own web crawler, but their CEO is on record saying they also supplement with third-party vendors. And what's funny is Caitlin, who wrote the post, when she asked Perplexity itself, its own tool said it uses Google. So like these tools are pulling from the SERP, and then they're doing this natural language thing where they're seeing, when they see the word FeedBucket from their like ingested training material and the things that they're Googling or whatever, they see what words and concepts are around that. And the reality of how people search these, talk to these LLMs is different than the study we did where we just typed the keyword in. People have elaborate, detailed conversations with the LLMs. They'll be like, hey, like I'm in this situation where I need this thing and I have this client and I need to get feedback. And they may mention some really specific detail or feature that you do. And if you don't have any material on the internet for those LLMs to ingest, associating your brand name with that specific thing, you have no chance of the LLM figuring that out. These LLMs don't really know anything other than the material they ingest, and then they regurgitate it back because their ability to understand natural language is really good. And so like you need to put that in material that they're going to ingest. And so Benji makes a great point, is like, if you're not going to write that, like detailed discussions of the exact features associated with your brand name, in this case FeedBucket, who is? Your competitors are not going to write that for you, and ChatGPT is not going to just figure it out. It's ingesting this material. So yeah, that's actually a great point for like being mentioned on LLMs. So don't be shy here. Do what Marcus did. You can read his post, and like he has screenshots, he has details, manage the feedback. But let me just recap key things. Be extra careful about search intent. I imagine a lot of the people reading this and listening to us, and our audience is obviously people already in content and SEO, and they're going to be like, of course, I know search intent. Yes, but read it carefully and say, am I starting my intros in a way that's too beginner for the audience? Number two, think about your differentiator. When you come down to start to teach them in these bottom of funnel kind of tools-based posts, when you start to discuss how the reader should be thinking about tools and features and what they should look at, ask yourself, are the features that I'm mentioning too obvious that everyone else can say? What is my real differentiator? Side note, we should do another episode of like this, a breakdown for a tool that someone feels is not differentiated. We've had clients like this. If you have a client or your own company or whatever, and you just genuinely are like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. And we've had clients say this to us, and we've had successful engagements with it. I'm going to be honest with you. we're not really that differentiated, but no one is. This is a commoditized space. Everyone has the same features. So what do we do now? Please send us some bottom of funnel articles like this for us to look into possibly breaking down on a future episode. It can be done, and you simply mention some of the benefits. But think carefully about even the way you're wording it. Is it just kind of obvious stuff that anyone would say? And then number 3, lean into your differentiator. I told Marcus then, and I'm saying it again here, he's too shy or soft in selling the script method. And it's so buried in here. I found it because I'm reading this carefully to give him feedback. But if you're just scrolling around, remember my dating app analogy, the SERP is like someone being able to swipe through 1 million profiles. They have another profile is just waiting right behind yours. And so the SERP is behind this in another tab. They can just go to another site and get another list of website feedback tools. So you have a very fragile relationship with the reader. And so it's buried in here, this idea of this stuff just in FeedBucket, it's in your native project management tool. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to install anything. And therefore that's better. And here's why that's better. I think he should lean into that hard and much harder. You can check our website for that. We lean into it extremely hard. We felt self-conscious that maybe we lean into it too much of just everyone else is chasing traffic and we're looking at conversions. So those are the 3 principles I think to take away here. And I want to say thank you again to Marcus for being a great sport and asking us to do this and being great about the feedback.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. You can also get the audio-only versions of these shows wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us at growandconvert.com/newsletter for any articles and updates for when these videos come out.